Welcome to the Emerging Biotech Leader, where we help biotech leaders maximize the value of their therapeutics from translational development to product launch. We're your hosts. I'm Kim Kushner.
And I'm Ramin Frahood. We are here to help you navigate the pitfalls of the biotech industry and illuminate a path forward.
Welcome to the Emerging Biotech Leader podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Helen Kargaryani, Vice President of Quality and Compliance at SSI Strategy. Helen is an expert in quality and risk management with over 30 years of experience in pharmaceutical and biotech industries. In her current role, she leads the Global Quality Division at SSI, specializing in the implementation of quality management systems and ensuring compliance with good manufacturing practices and good distribution practices. She also has worked closely with regulatory bodies such as FDA and EMA to ensure global compliance across various sectors. Today's conversation with Helen resonates with the topic we previously discussed at our last podcast with Bijan Elahi, an expert in medical device risk management, where he shared valuable insights on the essential role of safety and compliance in device manufacturing. Like Bijan, Helen brings invaluable expertise on managing risks, but from a pharmaceutical and biopharma perspective. Helen, we're happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Helen, I want to start my first question with your career journey and how you ended up in quality and risk management, and what do you actually do at SSI?
Well, thank you. Happy to explain that. Well, I have spent over 30 years within quality, basically within life science and healthcare industry, mostly within quality, regulatory, and pharmacovigilance. And currently, I am Vice President of Global Quality at SSI Strategy, overseeing the Global Quality Initiative at the company. And also, I'm leading the Quality Hub, providing services like quality advisory, inspection readiness, audits, and QMS development and implementation all teams. Before SSI, I was head of quality regulatory pharmacovigilance for the Linde Healthcare region Americas. I was supporting clients and stakeholders in over 10 countries in the region Americas, again, mainly focus on quality and pharmacovigilance. And I also had leadership role as a head of quality for the Linde Group before I moved to the Americas region. At that time, I was based in Stockholm and had a group of 15 expertise reporting to me, including risk assessment and medical devices, pharmaceuticals, and hospitals. I also, before that, I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals and Pharmadude, and I also worked with the quality and compliance, I would say. In terms of your question, how did I move into risk management? I would say that, and quality, I would say that for me, these two areas are essential for any business to ensure compliance and effectiveness. And if I wanted to just simplify that and summarize that, I believe that quality is the ultimate goal. QMS is a system that we maintain quality, and risk assessment is basically help us to identify and mitigate risk to quality. And together, all these three build a solid platform for compliance in the company.
Great, thank you. Just kind of building up on that, Helen, can you discuss some of the consequences of improper risk management, and what are some of the long-term consequences of not investing in risk management?
Yes, in terms of, risk assessment and risk management is important for any company at any levels. If you don't have a risk management program, then you need to focus on everything, basically. So risk management supports you to focus on the critical risk to your business and mitigate them before something happens, before you have a operational shutdown, or before you have a I would say, financial losses. So in terms of risk management and why we have to, what happens if we don't focus on risk management is that basically at the end of the day, you are going to face some financial losses and regulatory non-compliance.
So when you're trying to manage the risk, are you trying to manage everything with their potential risk, or do you kind of prioritize what are the key areas that you need to focus on in order to have your arms around managing a potential risk that may occur at a later time?
Yeah, in terms of risk management, as I mentioned before, risk is different the definition of risk and the appetite of the risk is different from company to company. So based on your business, based on your stakeholders and how much risk they are willing to take, then you need to prioritize risk. You need to focus on the risk. These are the risks for my business and these are risks that I wanted to mitigate. So basically, we can focus on everything because if you focus on everything, you won't lose the important point. And again, this is depending on the stakeholders and patients, that you are serving, investor, partners. And I would say that the risk is different. Each company needs to identify the risk important to their business and make sure that they have a strategy in place to mitigate.
And then from a CEO or a CMO perspective, at the C level in biotech companies or pharmaceuticals, how can they integrate the risk management principles into their strategy? Should that be part of the strategy right from the beginning? Is that something that you think about later in part of your strategy, or is it not even part of the strategy? How should the C-level be thinking about managing the risk and integrating that or not integrating it into their strategy?
Yeah, that's a very good question because like anything else, the executive and the leadership team, they set the platform, the culture of a company. Also here in terms of risk management. I think it's very important for the CEO and CMOs and their C-suite to make sure that the risk management is a part of the strategic planning and also make sure that they always look for the emerging risk because we are operating in a regulated environment and these regulations are changing all the time. We can't just decide this is the risk for my company and then I stick with it and I fulfill it to mitigate that. You have to all the time make sure as a C-suite that risk management is a continuous part of your strategic planning to capture the emerging risks. And also what's another thing that is really important for the C-suite is to lead by examples and make sure that risk management is a part of decision makings at any level of the company.
And what are some of the considerations that the executive level has about risk management? Is that internal expertise? Is it the cost? Is it something that they may not even be thinking about? What are some of the considerations that they usually typically have?
The consideration is that for the C-suite is two things I would say at least are important. One is regulatory compliance and the other one is business continuity. And both of them are really connected to having a solid risk management program in place. I mean, there are so much they can lose if you don't anticipate the risk and you don't have a plan to mitigate them. So from a stakeholder perspective, then C-suite needs to make sure to have the risk management program included in everything they do.
I see. And is that different for smaller biotech companies that they have limited resources? How would you approach risk management for them? They probably don't have the internal resources or the expertise, or it may be just a small biotech company that is is just coming to the market, or they just becoming an IPO? What are some of the areas that they should be focusing on, and how do they overcome those?
So in terms of a smaller company, then of course, as you mentioned, there are limited resources. And but again, it's really important for this startup, smaller company to implement the risk management and risk assessment program in the business as soon as possible. Because when you have a risk management program, it also helps you to allocate resources in a good way. Then you know these are the risks of my business, and these are what I need to focus on with limited resources. And of course, if you have limited resources as a small company, you can always use experts, external experts, but also you can use your network and you can reach out to regulatory bodies. There are so many things that you can do as a small company to ensure that you have a risk management program, at least have the knowledge. But also, like anything else, risk management can be implemented in a very small scale, but is important to be implemented. So I would say that they should focus on implement it as soon as possible, but also don't overdo it. Make sure that you have a program that is actually scalable later on as a company develops.
That's a really important point. So kind of maybe talking about that a little bit, about how do you tailor the quality strategies into the need of a particular organization to meet a specific need, while ensuring that you're also being regulatory compliant and audit readiness and all of that. I'm sure that it's not just one size fits all. So you come in with some of the quality strategies and tailoring it to the need of that particular company. How does that all work? How do you do that?
It's really important that you understand the needs of the company and the business and the customer and client in terms of QMS, because different company has different focus. They have different visions. They have different regulatory requirements in terms of their product. And investor, there are so many stakeholders that are involved. So each and every quality management system has a price tag. And what is important to make all stakeholders happy in terms of investor, but also the regulatory bodies and stay compliant, is to focus on what the company needs in terms of quality management system. We usually call it a customized quality management system. Make sure that the QMS is actually matching the needs of the company. But again, like risk management, it is important that when you implement a QMS based on your need, that is scalable, that you as move on and the company add additional products, that there is flexibility in the system to actually scale up.
So I'm assuming that at the beginning, at first, you do an assessment what the risk might be, and then you prioritize those risks, and then you focus on how to mitigate those risks. Is that kind of like a high level approach?
Absolutely. As I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, quality is the goal, right? And we have a QMS. Basically, QMS is a system that helps us to maintain quality. And then the third important element is risk management and risk assessment. And that's where we usually start when we meet with the clients. We start with the gap assessment. We start to identify the main risk. And then as a part of the QMS roadmap, also include the mitigation of these risks. So basically, you can build a QMS without having a risk assessment and understand what is important for this company. But also we consider the appetite for the risk for the company, because sometimes your patients are small children. Sometimes the patients are a different kind of, it's different therapeutic area. So it's really important to integrate risk management. Start with risk management. and then plan your roadmap, and then start to build your QMS accordingly.
And then is risk management, it's only for that department of risk management or those individuals that are in that function? Should that be a culture across the company, or is it just the individuals that are working in that department? How does that work?
Yes, I mean risk assessment and risk management is very similar to I would say, the concept of quality. You can't have a quality in a company if not everyone is a part of this quality culture. And many people think that quality is only for quality department. It's not, and it's the same with risk management. There is something called siloed risk management, which means that each and every department can consider risk management in their function and day-to-day operation. But at the end of the day, if you don't, as a company, if there is no communications between different functions, then your risk management will fail. So I would say that one of the important things when you implement a risk management program is to make sure that the program is cross-functional, that people communicate with each other, because we bring in different view and perspective in a risk management. Quality have a different view of risk, marketing have different, and also medical affairs, we see the risk in different ways. So it's really important to have a cross-functional risk management program.
And then what are, in your experience, Helen, both working in the pharma, in biotech companies, and now consulting, what are some of the common pitfalls and mistakes that you have seen companies make when it comes to risk management?
Yeah, in terms of risk management, one of the common pitfalls is that companies doesn't include that in their strategic planning. It should be a natural part of the business, and if you don't implement it, incorporate it in your business planning, then you will miss that from the beginning, and then we move on to different scenario, which is a fire.
They think about it too late in the process.
Exactly. Then we wanted to damage control, or we wanted to fire shoot, when it's happened. So I would say that this is one of the myths I have seen, that the leadership team not supporting the implementation of a risk management program. And another thing that I would say is I have seen as a pitfalls is that the companies negligent risk management and don't include that in their training program, because it's really important that people have their adequate training to be a part of this risk management program.
Do you find that people come with open arms for risk management and they're looking forward to implement the risk management in their companies, or is it something that most of us are not really educated on, and it's something that we think about it a little bit maybe later in the process that we want to focus on? Is that has been your experience, that that is something that they are kind of not necessarily looking forward to do a risk management assessment, or not?
Good question, Ramin. I'm laughing because the latest experience I had was yesterday. I was talking to a company, and they are very late stage, actually, to file, to authorities, and they haven't considered the risk management. And the funny thing is that actually the risk management is included in their documents and QMS, but it has not been implemented. I think for me, be serving within quality in over 30 years, I know that many people are not meet with quality with open arms, and risk management is another area that I see that people hesitate, because everyone thinks that risk management is a knowledge. I don't have it, But I have to say, we as a human being, all of us on daily basis, we are managing this. Early morning when we go up until we go to bed, we do a lot of risk assessment. I remember Bijan mentioned is about 35,000 risk assessment per day. So we have it with us. Some people have additional training, but it's common sense. It's really common sense. And I see a lot of companies actually fail to implement risk assessment, risk management, because they believe that is something bigger than they can manage.
So even though that they may have a plan, but the implementation is really kind of like where the most important and critical step is implementing that risk plan that they have put together.
The most gaps we see anyway in any areas, including risk management, is that either a company does not have a program for that, for example, risk management, and the other common gaps that we see that the company actually has something about risk management in their QMS, but they have not been able to implement it in the processes.
You mentioned damage control. I'm assuming that if you don't implement it correctly, appropriately to the needs of the company, obviously you don't have to have everything implemented all at the same time. There's some costs associated with it. There's damage control that you have to manage later on. What are some of those consequences that you've seen in your experience, that if it's not done correctly, appropriately, and at the right time, what are the consequences that the companies face?
I mean, in terms of consequences of not implementing risk management program, I would say within our business field, life science, biotech, medical devices, the main risk is non-compliance, right? Because you don't anticipate the risk, into your process, program, product development, and then at some point you will fail, and then it's going to be the regulatory funds or consequences, which also is really related to the financial losses. If you have a plan, you have a timeline for a new product launch, and you fail because you haven't anticipated the risk, or, for example, new regulations, then it's actually will lead to financial loss for the company. But also, in some cases, I have seen in medical devices, it's shortage of product, which will impact the stakeholders, patients, because you didn't do the risk management properly. The product cannot be sent to the market. Patient is suffering, and they are not receiving the medical devices or the products. So I would say the main risk would be the regulatory non-compliance, legal penalties, and also operational shutdowns.
Helen, what advice do you have for startups or smaller companies that they may not have that experience, for a new CEO or CMO, that they come from a different background, that the risk management was already maybe managed or handled by different departments, and now that there's having a startup or smaller companies, they're not really paying attention to that. What advice do you have for these type of companies that are startups or smaller biotechs with regards to be proactive in risk management?
I think one important portion is what you just mentioned, be proactive. It's really important to set a culture of being proactive in terms of risk management instead of being reactive. Because if you are reactive, then again you are on damage control mode, and it will cost you. But for smaller startup company, I would say that start with risk management as soon as possible. Start small. You don't need to do everything at the same time at the start, but make sure that what you put in place is something that is scalable, because all companies have a vision of growth and develop. So I would say start with it as soon as possible. Do something small but scalable. And if you don't have knowledge in-house, which they don't have because it's very limited resources, reach out to experts, consultants like our company or any other service provider. But also you can use your network, and in some cases you can also actually reach out to regulatory bodies for advice.
Well, Helen, thank you very much for your time today. This was very insightful. I know I learned quite a bit. Really appreciate your time and sharing your insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Emerging Biotech Leader, an SSI Strategy podcast. Join us each month for more conversations with biotech leaders. If you'd like to help navigating the complexities of biotech, reach out to our team at ssistrategy.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a review.